Should a minor be permitted to have a sex change surgery? Are they intellectually and emotionally mature enough to understand the potential ramifications of making such a permanent, life altering decision? Interestingly, although many on the political left seem to advocate that they are, a 20-year-old liberal lawmaker in New Hampshire disagreed, and he voted on legislation that opposed his party line in this. The result of which helped to pass legislation that has banned these surgeries for minors in New Hampshire. So, what is it about him that differs from his liberal peers? Well, let's talk about that. It should be obvious to everyone that we live in a society that is ongoingly suffering the effects of agenda driven politics. Truth and fact are no longer those things which are sought after as the foundation of that upon which we build our system of belief. I would even go as far as to say, by the consistent negative response of many liberal politicians and activists in their attitude towards the truth, that the saying, truth has become the new hate speech, is pretty accurate. Now, over the course of the last decade or so, agenda driven bias has become the sole focus of many within our government, our state, and our local leadership. And with the unwavering, deceptive manipulation of circumstances by the mainstream media in promoting only their side of the bias, the reality of fact and truth has become replaced with a generated perception of truth. But when I see politicians be brave enough to buck their party line to make decisions based upon fact and truth, I have to take the time to commend them. In this particular instance, I am referring to the recent vote held in New Hampshire to pass a bill, HB 619, that would ban sex change surgeries for minors. 12 Democratic representatives voted with Republicans to pass the bill, but I wanted to share the brief speech of one in particular, 20-year-old Jonah Wheeler.
I rise today despite the uncomfortability of this vote because for me, it comes down to whether or not kids should be able to get these surgeries. And despite the fact that I am a liberal, despite the fact that I believe in non-discrimination for trans people, for gay people, for queer people, and that I will fight until my very last day, until they are recognized as human beings. The question before us is whether or not children under the age of 18 should be able to get these surgeries. And I, despite being a liberal who believes in those human rights, do not think that is the case. And when the question is put before me, and I spoke to people until 11:30 last night, lobbyists, different stakeholders, people with firsthand experience, lived experience, and I've been speaking to people for the last 4 weeks about this bill. The only argument against it being that this opens the amendment specifically opens the door to other bad trans bills. But folks, the slippery slope fallacy I don't think applies here. We're talking about whether or not kids should get these surgeries, and they should not. These are irreversible surgeries. And despite the fact that there are medical exceptions which are included in this amendment, when people have problems with their genitals that need to be addressed, that should be addressed. But when we're talking about whether or not kids should get these surgeries, I think that goes a bridge too far, and I will not be signing on to that. So I will be supporting this amendment, and I would appreciate the work done in the Health and Human Services Committee. They worked very diligently, and if you want to watch legislating being done in real time in a really good way, I would recommend that you watch the committee hearings on this bill, the work session on this legislation, because they diligently took all people into account, they took all experiences into account, and they came up with legislation that protects children under the age of 18. This is not a question of whether or not you're with the trans community. This is a question on whether or not you believe children should be able to get these irreversible surgeries. So again, despite being a Democrat, despite being a liberal who believes in human rights, I don't think that children should be able to get these irreversible surgeries. So I'll take all the heat that comes from this. I will be voting for this amendment and for OTPA if it passes. The bill in its original form, I think, is too broad, and I won't be voting for OTP, but I will be voting for OTPA if the bill passes, and for the amendment if it passes. And I hope all of you on this side of the aisle who definitely believe in human rights, who believe in protecting non-discrimination, would consider the irreversible surgeries that kids are going to be getting if this bill does not pass.
So, as you heard within his speech, he spoke about how he didn't just follow the party line, how he took the time to look into the facts. He talked about how he spoke to people who had direct experience within this issue and then formed his decision to vote to pass the bill based on what the factual evidence revealed to him. Now, what really impressed me about this young man is that although he is a staunch liberal, he cared more about doing the right thing for the sake of these children than he did about following the party line. Yet, despite how easily many liberals will viciously attack their own should they ever do anything that is moral or right, he still demonstrated the courage to vote for what fact and truth revealed to him. He demonstrated himself to be a lawmaker that desired to make informed decisions, decisions that are based in true reality and not a generated one. This is a rare quality today because more and more it seems that as a society, many have lost the ability to be critical thinkers. And I can understand why that is, because many don't seem to even possess the desire to exist within the truth anymore. But knowing how right decisions can only be made if they are made from the understanding of actual truth and fact, one would have to question just why it is that so many no longer care about the importance of truth, or within their own need to be a critical thinker. Many years ago, in John F. Kennedy's 1961 inaugural address, he made a statement that had resounded within our country for many years to follow. He said, quote, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." This famous quote is most likely lost to many today because the substance of what it represented is directly contrary to the self appeasing me movement of today's society. And that because this quote emphasizes the fact that there is a bigger picture to consider in life than just you or me. It emphasizes that if we are to stand united as a people, if we are to be capable of resolving social issues, then we all have to realize and accept that there are things in life that are more important than just you and me. It emphasizes that you and I also have to be willing to sacrifice some things for the greater good. The best example I can offer you of this is how so many have sacrificed their lives as soldiers, police officers, firemen, and even regular citizens who risk their lives to save others. These are men and women who realize that there are circumstances greater than their own personal need of safety. And how about the mom and dad who denied themselves the new house they wanted because it was more important that their child attended a certain college? Or the husband or wife that was struggling with their marriage but decided that it was better for all if they stayed to work it out. Life is full of circumstances where we have to accept that at times things are just bigger than us and our wants. And we have to be willing to make decisions based on that understanding for the greater good. This is what this young liberal representative did in his speech that reminded me of this quote from JFK. You see, he approached this important issue with the understanding that there was a bigger picture at play than his party's agenda driven bias. He demonstrated, unlike many liberals in this country, that it is fact and truth which must dictate what it is that we believe. And here's why that is so important. A country cannot exist in peace and unity. Social issues cannot be resolved if a person's private belief system gets to override actual truth. And by what we see happening today within the chaos we are enduring in this country, that becomes clearly evident. Yet imagine what could happen if our society as a whole came back to the understanding of what JFK was saying. Imagine the type of society we would have if our leadership turned away from fighting for their agenda driven bias to fighting for actual truth and fact. So, even though I personally disagree with much of what the Liberal Party stands for, I have to admit that in this, I respect this young representative and his peers who voted to pass this bill for their commitment to wanting to cast the right vote based on truth and fact rather than just in their following the party line. As an American who staunchly believes in the freedoms our Constitution grants us, I am fully okay in my understanding that I won't agree with a lot of people over a lot of things, and that a lot of people won't agree with me concerning a lot of things. But I also understand that just because we are granted these freedoms, we need leadership that would never use said freedoms as the means to disregard fact and truth just to promote their own personal agendas. And yet, in this country, this is the main problem we face within much of our leadership and within current social activism. The truth remains we will never achieve resolution of any issue we face as a country if our leaders will not conduct themselves within the level of integrity that this young, liberal, 20-year-old representative just did. So feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments and be sure to punch that like button if you agree. Also, thank you if you already have. But if you haven't, hit that subscribe button as that would be a great help to me in growing the channel. And I can't tell you just how much I would appreciate your support. So hey, as always, I just like to say God bless you and thanks for taking the time to listen. Until next time.